Radio dispatch, one fire unit down here in front of the Kentucky Fried Chicken on Dixie, just north of Valley, to put out a fire.
Congress passed and President Lyndon Johnson signed the Immigration and Nationality Services Act. Here's how President Johnson began his speech.
This bill that we will sign today is not a revolutionary bill. It does not affect the lives of millions. It will not reshape the structure of our daily lives or really add importantly to either our wealth or our power.
Hearing that now, it is an amazing statement because it proved so wrong. In fact, expert after expert had testified before Congress that little would change.
Nicholas Katzenbach confronted Governor George Wallace on the steps of the University of Alabama on the issue of allowing black students to attend.
I would ask you once again to responsibly step aside, and if you do not, I'm going to assure you that the orders of those courts will be enforced.
They came from all parts of the city, proud of their neighborhoods and disgusted with a court system that could send their children to school outside that neighborhood. They said they were coming to stand outside the federal building to tell Senators Kennedy and Brooke exactly how the city feels about their consistent support for busing. He knew he was in hostile territory.
I don't too much like the forcing us to go to these other schools.
Why should I go there? I got a school right across the street, one down the street and one up the street.
Well, we have to go along with it. We don't have any other choice at this point. You know, there's too much force around. The schools are all guarded. We can't go up to protest.
Police officers who are used to using wide discretionary powers out in the street are now required to act as a quasi-military outfit.
Keep in mind you have this statute to back you up. And if somebody is killed, according to this, you are guiltless. 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 Guiltless.
I believe with all my heart that the existence of this remarkable multiracial collection, association of independent nations stretching across 5 continents, covering every race, is something that is potentially of immense value to the world.
We are determined to preserve the British character of Britain. We welcome other races in reasonable numbers, but we have already admitted more than we can absorb.
We must be mad, literally mad as a nation, to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents who are, for the most part, the material of the future growth of the immigrant-descended population. It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre.
I dismissed Mr. Powell from the Shadow Cabinet because I believed that his speech was inflammatory and liable to damage race relations in this country.
The most evil feature of Mr. Powell's new conservatism is the hatred it is stirring up.
The most evil feature of Powell's new conservatism, the flag of racialism, which has been hoisted in Wolverhampton, is beginning to look like the one that fluttered 25 years ago over Dachau and Belsen.
This man objects to having white countries flooded with hundreds of millions of non-whites. Only a Nazi who wants to kill 6 million Jews would object to turning white countries non-white.
The smaller the numbers of the strangers who come amongst us, the easier it is to treat them exactly as ourselves.
If we were to have an open door to them at the end of the day, then it would mean such an influx that our social services, our housing, our whole environment in some of our big towns and cities would be congested and overloaded to the point where it would be impossible to carry out one of the most difficult problems any country's had to do in recent times, and that is to assimilate the immigrants among our own population.
I take my word for it. I don't like white people.
Why not?
Because they get swearing and yes, you know, we all are the same under the skin.
There's an awful lot of ignorance among British people about the immigrants in their midst. Is any part of your tour to find out some way of doing something about this?
Well, in two ways. Of course, in the schools, an increasing amount is being done. So many of our schools are multiracial schools.
The British people had never been consulted on the unprecedented transformation taking place in their country. The speed and scale of immigration made many feel uneasy. Familiar neighbourhoods were being changed forever. Some white British people also believed they were becoming second-class citizens in their own country.
We've taken a petition down to the Robert Carr in the Home Office, and we're asking him to have some common sense about this. We have 1 million unemployed. We can't squeeze up anymore.
They're coming over thick and fast now, and I'd like to think that they're going to put a halt to it shortly.
Well, I think it's about time the government took over its responsibilities and sent these people back to their country of origin.
The annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents.
Powell had been horrified by immigration levels of 50,000 a year. 40 years on, they're over 300,000 a year, 6 times the figure.
Who speaks Tamil?
Me.
Urdu? Me. Nipuri Punjabi? Me.
Here at the Sacred Heart Primary in Tipton, none of the last Year 6 pupils spoke English as a first language. Most of the 128 children have parents from Bangladesh or Pakistan. All the major religions are taught here.
Sarah? Nigeria. Edward? Ghana. And Abby? Nigeria. So you're all from the continent of Africa. So we've got
many different backgrounds, but they're all now Londoners.
Comparing 2001 with 2011, that story of what's happening to the white British is at its most dramatic in London, but it's a story across the UK. 87% of people described themselves as white British in 2001. That's now fallen to 80%, and that's really due to high levels of immigration throughout the decade.
She knows she's raising her children in one of the most desirable counties in the world. Marin also happens to be one of the whitest.
When I pick up my grandson or take him to school, I see maybe 4 Latino children there and 1 African American, 2 with my grandson. That's something's wrong.
The federal government recently took Marin County to task. The feds say Marin is not fully in compliance with the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Why they're not doing more? Now they have to be forced to do more.
Uncle Sam wants to help you diversify your neighborhood, whether you like it or not. Tonight, correspondent Doug McElway tells us about a new interactive effort that some people say is a huge overreach.
It's called Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing. It will require the feds to gather data on segregation and discrimination in every single American neighborhood and remedy it. Data from this discrimination database will be used with zoning laws, house financing, infrastructure planning, and transportation to alleviate discrimination and segregation. Specifics are lacking. The rule, quote, does not prescribe or enforce specific local or public housing authority policies. Some fear the rule will open the floodgates to lawsuits by HUD, a weapon already used against Westchester County, New York, where towns like Cortland are writing HUD in protest, quote, in order to keep the taxes amongst the most affordable, the town board needs commercial property for commercial uses. Also troublesome to critics, the HUD secretary, in announcing this proposed rule, blamed poverty solely on zip code, not on fatherlessness, not on the dependence culture, nor on other factors that studies have shown help lead to poverty.